In this comprehensive example, we're going to look at the difference between using a traditional costing system with one overhead rate and using an activity-based costing system. This is a lengthy example. You may want to take time to read through it, but we'll read through it together. Rhino Corporation manufactures one product that is available in both a standard and a deluxe model. Since the introduction of the deluxe model, management has observed a consistent decline in profit, even though sales of the deluxe model are increasing each year. So obviously this is not a good situation. Sales are increasing of our new product and profits are decreasing. Currently, manufacturing overhead is assigned to products on the basis of direct labor hours. For the current year, management has estimated manufacturing overhead costs to be $500,000 and that the company will produce 5,000 units of the deluxe model and 40,000 units of the standard model. The deluxe model requires 2 hours of direct labor for each unit, or a total of 10,000 hours for the year, and the standard model requires 1 hour of direct labor for each unit, or a total of 40,000 for the year. Materials and labor costs are shown below. We can see that direct materials required is $40 for the deluxe model, $25 for the standard model. Direct labor, $14 for the deluxe model, and $7 for the standard model. Management is considering implementing an activity-based cost system. They have identified 4 activity cost pools related to manufacturing the products. So they've identified just 4 cost pools. We've got purchasing, that is driven by purchase orders issued, and the estimated cost is $60,000. Machine setup is driven by the number of setups. The cost is $100,000. Processing is driven by machine hours with a total cost of $300,000, and inspection is driven by number of inspections with a cost of $40,000. Notice that this does add up to the $500,000 of total overhead cost. What they did in setting up their ABC system is just identified that 4 activities need to occur, and they took the $500,000 and broke it down by activity. Now I've given you the activity expected for both the deluxe and the standard model in terms of purchase orders, number of setups, machine hours, and inspections. We'll reference this data as we need it. First, we're going to compute the product cost per unit for each model using a plant-wide rate based on direct labor hours. That is the system they are currently using, and that is what we call a traditional system. And then in question 2, we're going to compute the activity rates for the 4 activity pools, and then we will find the unit product cost for each model based on activity-based costing. I do want to remind you that we are producing 5,000 units of deluxe model and 40,000 units of the standard model. And I bring that up because I want you to see the activity needed is very different when you consider the volume. For example, we need to set up 1,200 times to make 5,000 units, or 800 times to make 40,000 units. And you might think, well, how could this be? Well, the answer is the standard model is probably produced in very large batches, while the deluxe model is produced in very small batches given lower demand. Same thing with purchase orders. We're making 8 times as many standard units, but only required twice as many purchase orders. So I did make this a little bit exaggerated, but it's for demonstration purposes. All right, under a traditional costing system, you've got room to write your solution on the next page of your notes, and remember to assign cost under a traditional system. We're going to use a plant-wide overhead rate. So I'm going to go to the top of the page and calculate that rate. We have $500,000 of overhead cost, and 50,000 direct labor hours expected in total for the two product lines, 40,000 for the standards and 10,000 for the deluxes. That gives us a rate of $10 per direct labor hour. Now let me pause here and say that there is a lot of writing in getting this solution into your notes. So if you really just want to listen, I do have just the solution at the very end of this video, and you could copy it down from there. All right, back to our computations. In a traditional system, if you'll remember, we want to assign direct material to every unit. We were given that deluxes require $40 of materials, standards $25 of materials. That was given. Direct labor given to be $14 for deluxes and $7 for standards. And now we'll need to apply overhead. There's a few ways we could go about doing this. The fastest way would be to remember that the deluxes require 2 hours for each unit, and our overhead rate is $10 per hour. That's $20 for each unit of deluxe. And our standards require 1 hour per unit with an overhead rate of $10 per hour, or $10 per unit. The total production cost then for direct material, direct labor, and overhead applied for the deluxe model is $74, for the standard model $42. Now we'll turn our focus to an activity-based system. Recall that we did have 4 activity pools. I'm going to list the 4 pools and the overhead cost and divide by the activity to get the overhead rate. So remember, we were given these costs for our 4 activities. When we go to make our calculation then, for purchasing, we're going to take the $60,000 of purchasing cost and divide by the number of purchase orders of 6,000. That calculates out to be $10 per purchase order. For setup, we'll take the $100,000 of cost, divide by the total number of setups required of 2,000, and we get $50 per setup. Processing, $300,000 of cost, with 30,000 machine hours required for all products. That calculates to be $10 per machine hour. Inspection, $40,000 divided over 1,000 inspections for all the product lines gives us a rate of $40 per inspection. Now I do want to remind you that when we calculate the rate, I am looking at what was given for the activities, and if I want to know the cost of producing a deluxe model, to get my rate, I will divide by the total purchase orders for all product lines. 6,000. Question 3, determine the unit product cost for each model based on activity-based costing. I'm going to first allocate my overhead cost, and then I'll add in the direct material and direct labor, primarily because this computation of the overhead is a little more complicated in an activity-based system. Again, we're looking at the deluxe and the standard model, and we're going to allocate all 4 activities costs to each of the product lines. 2,000 purchase orders are required from the deluxe model, and we calculated the rate to be $10 per purchase order. For the standard model, 4,000 purchase orders at $10. Setup, we'll take the $50 per setup that we just calculated and multiply by the activity for the deluxe model, 1,200 setups, standard 800 setups. Processing, 18,000 machine hours times $10 is $180,000 for deluxe model, 12,000 machine hours times $10 per machine hour, or 120,000 for the standard model. Inspections, the activity rate was $40 per inspection, with $200 required for deluxe and $800 for standard, so we get $8,000 and $32,000 respectively. Our total overhead allocated is $268,000 to the deluxe model and $232,000 for the standard model. Notice this does add up to our $500,000. Now, if we want to get this on a per unit basis, we'll divide by 5,000 units for the deluxe model and 40,000 for the standard model, because that's the number we're going to produce of each of those product lines. And we get an overhead cost per unit of $53.60 for deluxe and $5.80 for standard. Now, I do want you to go back and look at what was given. The activity, now we are using the activity expected for each specific product line when we multiply by the activity rate. So we're not using the total purchase orders here. Here we're using the purchase orders for deluxe and purchase orders for standard. And we'll do the same thing for all four activities. Now, to calculate our total production cost per unit under activity-based costing, we'll need to add our direct material, $40 for deluxe, $25 for standard. Direct labor, $14 for deluxe, $7 for standard. Notice these two did not change between a traditional and an activity-based system. The manufacturing overhead is $53.60 for deluxes and $5.80 for standards, for a total cost per unit of $107.60 for deluxes and $37.80 for standards. Now let's compare the two calculations that we just made. I'll remind you, if you look at question 1, traditional costing, we thought that deluxes cost $74 to make and standards cost $42 to make. In part 3, we found that under activity-based costing, deluxes cost $107.60 to make and standards cost $37.80 to make. That was from part 3. Now, if you look more carefully, you can see there's a pretty big difference between the cost assigned to deluxes under the two methods and the cost assigned to standards. And this might help explain why they're selling more deluxe units but losing money. If they were pricing their products at based on the $74 of cost, they might decide to charge $104. And when you look at activity-based costing, it might actually be costing closer to $107 to make that. Now, on the other side, you might say, well, you know, with the standard model, we're making up for it because we might have overpriced that. Now, there's a big problem with overpricing in our competitive environment. The problem is your customers will turn to your competitor to buy their standard model, and they'll buy their deluxe from you. All right, so again, if you look back at question 1, you can see that our calculation of $74 for deluxes included $20 of overhead and $10 for standards. But when we used ABC, it was significantly more for the deluxe model. This reflects the fact that the deluxes require more purchase orders, more machine hours, more setups, those kinds of things. It's consuming more resources for every unit that is produced. Now here's the solution if you just want to take a look at the entire solution. All right, get some practice and be sure to get help if you need it.